We're moving at a rapid pace of censorship and misinformation on a global scale. If you watched my video yesterday on the internment camps that are coming into Canada and completely unaccountable, they will not answer questions as to how many and who they are for. They will only in a crackling, jelly-like voice tell you the propagated answer and answer it with quarantines for COVID 1984. Yet, when you see the description and it's read out, they never say anything about visitors or COVID 1984. No, instead, it's just this broad range of why don't we bring in private contractors? And so, right now, the new narrative that's going out there is that Sweden is actually going to start locking down. This was sent to me early today. And there's so much that we have to go over, including the latest video by the America's First Doctors that's already been censored, already been thrown out there as disinformation by Facebook, who's an authority on nothing. Facebook, you are an authority on nothing. You, like Twitter, tried to ban the Hunter Biden story as if the emails are not real and still trying to spin that narrative. They're real. They're real, they're real, they're real, they're real. And you know what? Steve Bannon is talking some big smack about it. We're going to get to that. There's a lot we're going to be going over today. But I do want to start with COVID 1984, the lockdowns, and Sweden. So, let's talk about the fact that the mainstream media is constantly trying to spin that Sweden somehow did a terrible job. But then you see them compared to other European nations that they're not going to mention in this article, like Italy, okay, like Spain, like Britain, okay? They did better than them. Now, we can argue all day whether or not Norway did, that much of a better job. But the bottom line is they didn't have lockdowns, they didn't have mask mandates, and it upset the establishment to the point that they don't want to speak about it, okay? So, what I want you to do is check out this headline right here. And this is a headline based on a Telegraph story that's behind a paywall. I want to make that extremely clear. It shows you media manipulation, even with, publications like Business Insider. Sweden is moving away from its no lockdown strategy. No, it isn't. That's not true at all. And preparing strict new rules amid rising coronavirus cases. Also not true. See, the headline is completely false when you read the article. The truth of the matter is that they're now going to localities, and we're going to read some of this article to show you that. They're going to some of these localities, and they're going to say that they should strongly suggest certain measures which do not include business shutdowns or mandatory masks. So does that sound like a reversal on a no lockdown strategy, or does that sound like they're going to go talk to local municipalities and we're going to see where it goes from there? Let's go to the videotape, as they say. All right? After opting against lockdowns measures through the coronavirus pandemic, Sweden is said to be shifting strategies towards the kinds of restrictive measures adopted by most of its neighbors. See that? Already, it's said to be shifting strategies. Okay? It doesn't say anything about going into lockdown. Anders Tegnell, Sweden's state epidemiologist, is set to meet with local health officials over the next week to discuss new measures to introduce in response to outbreaks in Stockholm and the nearby city of Uppsala. I'm probably butchering that. This is the Telegraph, okay? So now you go to that article, the entire thing's behind a paywall, okay? Unlike its Nordic neighbors, and here we are demonizing Sweden, and most other countries, completely false, Sweden did not, they're correct about this. Sweden did not deploy wholesale lockdown measures in response to the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic earlier this year. First of all, there has been no second wave. 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 as the America's First doctors are talking about now, with more testing, with false positives, right, with a PCR test that was never designed for this, you have a case-demic. You do not have an upswing in hospitalizations or deaths. And there are treatments. There were treatments in March. And they're largely the same treatments we talked about here. Largely. Steroid treatments, intravenous vitamin C, intravenous vitamin D, right? The America's First doctors, again, endorsing HCQ, talking about zinc, Zithromax, okay? We've had the Texas doctors talk about specific steroids outside of dextromethasone, right? We're talking about budesonide. There's so much out there. It's ridiculous to, sit here and act like there is not. Okay? Instead, the government led by Prime Minister Stefan Löfven allowed shops, bars, and restaurants to remain mostly open and students to attend school. I believe my nieces are actually in school today. Good. Let's stop the madness. Again, America's First doctors. You say what you want about them. They addressed the mental health issues of these students. They addressed the fact that if you are a student in school, you had a 99.997 chance of surviving. Sweden has recorded a much higher per capita death rate than its neighbors since adopting this strategy. Again, they had the nursing home deaths as well. The elderly did get hit. It had recorded 5,918 deaths as of Sunday, compared with 278 in Norway and 346 in Finland. Now, I would argue that those are much smaller nations, but you know what? Let's do it live. That's what we do here. Okay, so Norway population. Yes. So just so everybody gets it, Norway's population is about, half of that of Sweden, at least? Okay, so yes, there's that. It's about half of Sweden. And what's Finland's population? Now, obviously, the numbers are more than double. We're not going to skate around that. But yes, a little less than half of Finland as well. So let's go back here to the article. Now, let's see. Dr. Joaquin Rocklove of Umeå University told The Telegraph that after being an outlier early in the year, Sweden was shifting to a strategy closer to those adopted by most other governments. Okay? Now, here it is. It will give local authorities the power to strongly recommend. That is not imposing lockdowns. Okay? Not imposing lockdowns. Strongly recommend people to avoid busy public places like shopping centers, museums, gyms, concerts, and sports matches. Nowhere in there does it say it's closing businesses or mandating masks. Swedes may also be asked to avoid public transport and contact with those considered most vulnerable to severe infection. So again, targeting who may be the most vulnerable. Again, in no way, shape, or form does that read like we're going into lockdown. But you saw what the headline said. Okay? So, again, it shows you how deceptive the media is. And I put this up last night after watching it. And probably like 10 hours ago now that I've clipped this out. Only a matter of time before the tech overlords say this is fake or take it down completely. That doesn't make it untrue. Facebook's track record is shit. And we all know it. So, this is something I encourage people to watch. It's on Vimeo. They say false information checked by independent fact checkers. And their false information, by the way, is that masks somehow prevent viruses. As they tell you, before this, there was no studies whatsoever that suggested that masks keep you safe from viruses. Let me repeat that. There was none. Zero. Zip. Zilch. None, zero, zip, zilch, because that's not how RNA viruses work. Now, we can argue about the droplets or coughing on somebody. Listen, they're right. They did everything but say it was a transhumanist agenda. They talked about masking their faces. They talked about what that's mentally doing to children and society. Okay? Psychologically. They talked about what it's doing to us as a people. They talked about how it's dividing us even more and more and more, and how it's, a national security issue. They actually used that term. I applaud everything those doctors did. There was not one thing I sat there, listened to, and disagreed with. Not one. And of course, Facebook immediately wanted to fact check it. I don't think it was, obviously, I don't think it was around for 24 hours and put out there before you got that authoritarian fact check, Johnny Nonsense, from a social media platform that becomes less and less relevant and really is going to end up more and more like a Craigslist. If you even survive that, because something else will come along. All you people out there, and I know it's not a lot of my audience, because let's be honest, the most hardcore of hardcore right now are watching the Burmese Brigade for the first time over on Rockfin, but even beyond that, I don't have much of an 18 to 24 audience. It's not the Snapchat generation. It's not Instagram all the time. It's not selfie. Okay? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Now, on the flip side to that, I'm glad it exists. Unfortunately, I just learned of a college buddy of mine who I see every once in a while. He was in another fraternity. Rest in peace, Sebastian. I have no idea what happened, but he was one of the guys over the last few years that I would run into, and we would talk geopolitics. And he died suddenly. He must have been maybe 2-3 years older than me. I mean, he couldn't have been more than 45. And I probably wouldn't know that without social media. It has its place. But at the same time, these terms like FOMO and fear of missing out, you used to be able to use social media as a tool to spread real information that challenged the status quo. Now the algorithms have jacked that. They have promoted things like stories and really narcissism and vanity and putting yourself in front of a camera constantly, and you're the star of your own universe, and filters in live time that make your eyes bigger and take away your wrinkles and soften your face up and put angel wings on you. I got news for you guys. You ain't no fucking angel. None of us are. I get it. It's nice to play pretend sometimes. But when that doesn't, translate into pretend because it's all you see all day, all night, again and 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 again, that's going to do psychological damage to you. Okay, so all I can say is use social media as a tool, instead of letting it really control you. The information that you receive and the opinions that you have. I spar quite a bit with people I know, for the most part, on social media, because if you're just another anonymous troll, I just don't have time for you. So some of the other COVID 1984 info that we have to get into is Chris Christie reveals he was in the ICU for 7 days with COVID-19. Now, look, I'm not trying to take a shot at Chris Christie here, but Chris Christie is enormous. For those that don't know what Chris Christie looks like, let's just do it live. There we go. If this guy made it out after 7 days, how deadly is this thing? How deadly is it when the New Jersey governor, that's 150, maybe 200 pounds overweight, still makes it out? Now, ICU, I don't think he was ever put on a vent. I question exactly, what went on with him. But, I'm sure he didn't have a good time or a good go of it. This guy is not a healthy man. Any kind of virus that, is going to compromise your immune system, your breathing, when you're that big and you have that many problems, yeah, it's going to be an issue, Chris. But again, he got by. And remember, in my community, my former community, Oneonta, New York, where you had this big case-demic, and they tried to say there was like one hospitalization, but then when they got pressed on it, there was nobody in the hospital, right? They don't talk about the discharges. There was no death after this large outbreak. They didn't test the college kids from Long Island and New York City largely, where the biggest outbreaks in the country arguably were. right? Created all this fear. They put in a mandatory mask mandate inside your private residence if you have more than 10 people. Forget about just being on the street and now being able to find you anywhere in town if you can't maintain 6 feet or wear a mask. These people should be in jail, but it's part of an agenda. It's part of an agenda. And one part of that agenda is to reimagine education. Okay, well, they're going to reimagine education. And it's not just for, kindergartners or first graders or middle schools or high schools. It's college too. They are going to gut the SUNY system. Okay, that's what Bill and Melinda Gates are there to reimagine education for. SUNY Oneonta president resigns, acting president named. Now, first of all, the guy in the mask there, the chancellor, the guy up there with Cuomo all the time, he's a criminal. He needs to go to prison for what he did. Forget about just stepping down. He needs to go to prison for what he did. He knowingly allowed a bunch of people he knew would be infected to come up. The president went along with it because they wanted the money. And now you don't have a job anymore. Well, I got news for you. This is going to be the trend with SUNYs. Not all of them, but it's going to be consolidated. So many people are going to lose their jobs. The smart ones are going to get out because if you think that Cuomo's iron grip is going anywhere, you haven't been paying attention. Okay, they don't plan to end these lockdowns, especially in New York, after the elections. And we get into the election and, Biden, Trump, it doesn't really matter because Cuomo has, signed off on so many authoritarian executive orders. He's just going to do what he wants. So these SUNY systems are no longer going to have max capacity. They're going to go more to an online model. Many of them will close outright. Okay, that will gut any type of college town that needed this money to survive. It's already gutting them. It's already gutting them. The Black Oak Tavern, a bar 40 years, celebrated its 40th birthday last year. Dunzo. Gonzo. See ya. Goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. So, Governor Cuomo banned this large-scale Hasidic wedding. They were talking about 10,000 people. The Hasidic community said it was not going to be anywhere near that. They're still pushing back. They're largely the only ones in New York City that are pushing back against Cuomo. He's given out breadcrumbs. Oh, outside of New York City, we're going to start opening movie theaters at a quarter of the capacity. Really? Huh. Because guess what? That's not going to help when, AMC is renting out entire theaters for $100. Okay? $100. 11,000 screens around the country. And they're trying to believe New York, Texas, and several other states are doing this now because they're going under. They're going under. And who's going to want to rent a screen even for $100 if you can't have more than 10 people in it? Right? I mean, I get it. Maybe you want to sit there with 10 of your friends and have your own movie theater. And they say $250 to bring your own food because, again, concessions is mainly where they make their money. But take a nice little look. Huh? And I guess it's not in New York, Hawaii, or Alaska. I'm sorry. You can't do it in New York because of King Cuomo. Look at that. I misread that. Lovely. See, I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. So, like I said, this is a consolidation of power. This is a consolidation of control, too. This is also letting businesses know if you don't cooperate and go along with it, we will ruin you. We will ruin you. You think this is about a virus at this point? Do you? Yeah, because if it was about a virus, we would talk about, again, early treatment, early diagnosis, and then, trying to isolate yourself the best you could if you get an actual positive and you are on medication and you're showing symptoms. The president beat it in 3 days, and you can talk about he gets the best doctors, and look, you look at these convalescent plasma treatments, and once again, it's not like they're promising you anything more than what a supposed vaccine is going to promise you. And Pfizer, by the way, is now rolling them off the assembly line, and the media is acting as though people are super happy about it. Let's just do it live. Pfizer COVID vaccine, I think December. No, let's see. That's not from what I saw. Let's see. Let's take December out. So there it is right there. Rolls off production line amid hopes of emergency approval. You know, some of the headlines were like, what the world's been waiting for. I'm not waiting for this. I'm not happy about this. Several 100,000, according to Forbes. So it looks like it's going to get its regulation. And again, to the censorship, and we'll do it live. Remember, guys, check out the documentary films for free. But let's scroll down here. I think I put it here as well. I know I put it over on my Facebook. Maybe we didn't get this one, but they were censoring Scott Atlas. We can do that one live too. So Scott Atlas dared to tweet out. Yep, I didn't get that one. See? We miss things, guys. We miss things here. But let's put it up there. Scott Atlas Twitter censored. Because the tech overlords get us to tell us what we want. You know, we want to hear. So here it is right here. And Twitter removes misleading tweet from top Trump COVID advisor Dr. Scott Atlas that said masks don't work. So, again, masks work? No. LA, Miami, Hawaii, Alabama, France, Philippines, UK, Spain, Israel. WHO, widespread use, not supported. Many harms. Okay? Despite decades, considerable uncertainty value. There's so much here. Okay? That means that the right policy is the Donald Trump guideline. Use masks for their intended purpose when close to others, especially high risk. Otherwise, social distance. No widespread mandates. Common sense. I'm with them. 100%. Let's censor that. We'll censor that just like we censored these people for daring to speak out against masks. It's lovely. Isn't it awesome where we are here in COVID 1984? Just great stuff.